Welcome to another edition of From the Eagle's Nest, and now your host, Dr. Russ Moyer.
Hi, I'm Russ Moyer. I want to welcome you to From the Eagle's Nest. I'm here with my wife, Mave, and we're just enjoying talking about the nations, and today we're going to share a little bit about the First Nations people and the Canadian First People. We have an opportunity to travel to a lot of different people groups and meet with people, different tribes and tongues and nations. But today, the First Nations, they have a real place in our heart, and we've always had a heart for them, whether it's in Canada or United States. We really feel that that border is a man-made border, the same way it looks like to the First Nations people.
Yes. You know, about 5 years ago, it was a very exciting thing when the First Nations people actually invited us onto the land. And we put a proposal together for a building that was vacant out there on the Six Nations Reserve, which is close to our Hamilton offices. And they accepted that we could come onto that property and that particular building for no rent for 5 years, for an option for another 5. So we've just about finished the first 5 years. And it's just been amazing what God has done out there. Now we have a beautiful portable building that we've moved out there, that we've opened up like a center for excellence where we work with the Native people. We have all kinds of clothes and amenities that they might need that we freely give. They can just come and pick them up. We have some great programs going on out there for them, like Home with the Heart, how to teach and empower single moms to raise their household of children when they're on their own with the right kind of heart, and how to budget and how to do all the things that they need to do to be a mother and a dad in some cases. So it's been an exciting time just to get into their lifestyle and help them come out of some old things and into some new.
I remember when I put together that presentation, that video presentation, we met with a young lady who was the head of the commercial division for real estate on the Six Nations Reserve, which is the largest reserve in all of Canada. It sits between Brantford, Ontario and Hamilton. Yeah. And I showed them a little bit about what we were doing in downtown Hamilton, because we have the Kingsway Center there where we feed about 200 people a day, and we operate these empowerment programs that help people get their lives back together. You know, many of the people that we deal with are people that have fallen through the cracks of society and have had difficult moments, and we don't try to give them a hand out, we try to give them a hand up. And some of the programs that we operate now in the Six Nations at the Center for Excellence there, we have a beautiful building and a church sanctuary and meeting rooms. It's really beautiful. Besides food and clothing that we distribute, the programs that we operate, like in partnership with the Canadian Center for Abuse Awareness, because there's a tremendous amount of abuse amongst the First Nations people, and obviously they were abused. You know, much of our American and North American history is really based on a one-sided vision of what happened during that takeover. I mean, they were here way before we were here.
Right.
And when the pioneers went west, there was certainly some wonderful progress. But in the midst of that, there was great pain and torment. There was a trail of tears that to today is still hampering the people. In fact, reservation mentality and reserve mentality, to me, is not the right mindset. No. It's actually isolating them from the general population. And they are a very creative and intelligent group of people. They have a tremendous amount of musical skills and entertainment skills. We work with a number of wonderful families there that we have seen overcome some very difficult circumstances, and a really productive part. They're very good at being entrepreneurs, starting their own business, and music and drama and the native arts, the First Nations arts are beautiful. And they're great people, beautiful people. And when you hear the whole story and you put the pieces together, you know, history was written from the Anglican white society mindset, and certainly we brought some wonderful things. You know, we brought medical care, education, we brought the gospel message. We brought a lot of very good things into their society, but they already had a lot of wonderful things.
They did.
I mean, when you look at the things that they realize and know and the circumstances that they've had to work through. They're great people. The schools were a difficult thing when we began to take the young children out of their natural environment and trying to take their language from them and put them into what were they called, residential schools. And the abuse that occurred in the residential schools. I know Canada just went through a wonderful period where Prime Minister Harper, on behalf of all the nations, all of the nation of Canada and many people from different religious groups came and repented for the atrocities that occurred during that residential school time. But it's great to work amongst them. And, you know, when I made that presentation, Mave, the young lady said, oh, they'll never accept that. Because I said, well, the only way we'll take the building, because it was in bad shape and we needed thousands of dollars worth of renovations. I said, look, we'll take the building for 5 years at $0 a month. And then, but only if we get an option for the second 5 years at $0 a month. And she said, no, they're not going to accept that. I said, well, you show them what we do and show them what we've done before, and then you let me know what happens. And she called me back in about 3 weeks, and she said, Mr. Moyer, she said, you're not going to believe this. Oh, I said, try me. I said, I'm a believer. She said, the council accepted it. They want to welcome you onto the reserve.
Yeah.
They want you to do what you need to do. So now we have this beautiful building that a sanctuary and a center there on Tuscarora Road. It's Six Nations territory. So there are the Mohawks and the Tuscarora, all different Six Nations. Six Nations. And it's wonderful to see what God is doing there. And the way lives are being changed by the gospel message and by the love of Jesus Christ in the hearts of our team and staff. Our pastors, there are Pastor Jeanette and Mark Goudreau, and we have a wonderful pastoral team that just great people to work with and interact with. So we're going to show them a little video that'll give them, I think, a little idea of what they've had to overcome, and also what's going on there right now about the opening of it. And here we are 5 years later, still working amongst the people.
Yeah. Well, it's going to show them what they've overcome, but they're still overcoming.
They are.
You know, when I go to the reservation, my heart grieves, because to me, when I go out there, I feel like we've gone back into segregation, and we need to set people free. And they're still in the bondage of the boundaries of what the government says belongs to them. And we don't live like that. We're free to come and go. And I'm not saying that they can't come and go in and off the reserve, but their livelihood and their lifestyle and the quality of their life on the reserve is very much less than what we live as Canadians. And they're Canadians too. And we've dealt with many issues with them over the past few years. They've got a terrible situation with their water on the Six Nations Reserve, and people deserve to have good water to drink. So we're kind of working and trying to fight all those things that are still happening today, because they're free, but they're only as free as the government has allowed them to be in Canada because of the reserve living. And we know lots of natives that have come off the reserve, and they do extremely well. They don't need to live on a reserve. They don't need to be segregated. They don't need to have something different. But we need to be open and believe that all men are created equal, the way that God really did create them, and help them to experience true freedom, especially as believers. I don't believe in segregation of any kind. I don't believe in prejudice of any kind. I believe that God loves the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white. We are precious in His sight. And we need to operate in that kind of love. We need to operate in the God kind of love that says, just because you're different doesn't mean you're less than me. It means that we're just different. And we have to love each other the way that God loves us all.
We're going to be right back in just a minute. We're going to share with you the Canadian First Peoples video of how we started there and what's going on amongst the First Nation people. This one happens to be about the opening of our church and about the background of the people. I think you're really going to enjoy it, and we're going to be right back in just a few minutes. Enjoy this video about Canadians' First People.
Native people are deeply loyal to their roots and express them through venues of tradition and culture, which include colorful works of creative art, costume, music, dance, and drama. They embrace their spirituality through ceremonies and community living, and their love of their land and people shine even through the hardships they have endured. After all, they were the first caretakers that God entrusted with the great Canadian soil. The original peoples are identified as First Nations, Native, and Aboriginal. The Native people of Canada number over 1 million of all Canadians, 1/3 of which are under the age of 14. On the Six Nations Reserve, located close to Brantford, Ontario, there is an estimated 22,000, the largest pocket of national natives. Due to the long history of wars and battles that the Native people have fought, mostly to defend their land, possessions, and people, they have been left with many battle wounds and emotional injuries that have intensified into the following social issues. Suicide rates among the natives are 3 times higher than non-natives. The rate of suicide among Native youth is 5 to 6 times higher than the Canadian average. 60% of the Native population admit to using drugs, while a reported 75% admit to alcohol abuse. Overdose death rates among the Native population are 4 times the rate of the non-Native population. Fetal alcohol syndrome rates among Natives are 25 times the world average. Over 52% of Aboriginal children could be classified as poor. The average unemployment rate in Canada is around 7%. However, the unemployment rate for Indigenous people living on reserves is 31%. With decaying homes, relatively high unemployment, and no end in sight to what is needless suffering, it has become clear that something must be done to help our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. Eagle Worldwide Ministries has developed a strong connection and heart for the Native people in Canada. We have ministered in Ontario, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia among the Natives. We have formed a covenant relationship with Pastor Alan O'Soup from the Key Indian Reserve in Saskatchewan. Pastor Alan is a frequent guest speaker at our special events and is a faithful partner and friend to Eagle Worldwide Ministries. We have traveled and ministered on the Key Indian Reserve in Saskatchewan 3 times to date. Eagle Worldwide Ministries began ministering on the Six Nations Reserve in 2006. We started with a musical outreach, Lost in the 50s, and then later at Christmas with another show, both followed by the sharing of the gospel of Jesus Christ. A desire was birthed in the heart of Apostle Russ Moyer to have a church on the Six Nations Reserve. In 2008, Eagle Worldwide Ministries proposed a plan of action to the Native government involving spiritual and natural transformation of the reserve. In turn, the reserve gave Eagle Worldwide Ministries a building to expedite God's vision for the Natives. With the help of many volunteers and the financial support of its existing partners, Eagle Worldwide Ministries transformed the building into a working church. Eagle Worldwide Ministries opened Eagle's Nest Six Nations on January 3, 2009, and Pastor Alan and Carol O'Soup attended as guest speakers. Eagle's Nest Six Nation now holds weekly church services, as well as housing the Center for Excellence, a nonprofit organization that facilitates restoration and healing and motivates participants in areas of self-improvement and development. Some of the programs we will be offering are the Drop-In Resource Center for Food and Clothing, teaching single mothers organizational skills, such as Home with a Heart, Overcomers 12-Step Recovery Program for Addictions, abuse prevention workshops in conjunction with the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness, emotional healing classes and workshops, musical outreaches, revival tent meetings and summer camp services, wilderness adventure days for kids at Eagle Worldwide's 50-acre retreat and revival center in Copetown, Ontario. Eagle Worldwide Ministries will continue to reach out to the Native community, bringing the gospel of Jesus Christ as well as free community programs. Eagle Worldwide believes that for revival to come to Canada, it must first begin with the First Nations people in their own community and homes. Eagle Worldwide has a heart to see God move mightily among the natives, bringing healing, restoration, revival, unity, and transformation. Eagle Worldwide has a heart to see the Aboriginal people come to a full understanding of who they are in Jesus Christ and be all they can be and all they're called to be.
Well, welcome back to From the Eagle's Nest. That was an exciting video about the Six Nations Reserve and our church there. We've ministered to a lot of First Nations people all across Canada and the United States. In Saskatchewan at the there with Alan O'Soup, a wonderful man of God, and on the Credit Reserve, just in all different parts of the country. And you know, every one of them are a different tribe, different tongue, different nation, but they all have that same First Nations flair to them, and excitement and talent and ability. It's great to work amongst them and serve among them.
It is. You know, it's been awesome when we go out west, because we always minister at the Cowboy Church too. Yeah. So we always have a lot of fun out there, because if he's ministering to the Cowboys, I'm ministering to the Indians. And if I'm ministering to the Cowboys, he's ministering to the Indians. And we always have a lot of fun with each of the groups out there when they realize that we're doing that. It used to be an old thing about how the Cowboys and the Indians. So it's kind of fun when you're in the family of God.
And you know, they know that really there's no prejudice, you know, in our hearts. So we get a chance to laugh and to joke about our background and heritage the same way I do about Italian and Polish and whatever.
Right.
Just embrace people for being people and enjoy them and enjoy their culture and what they bring to the table. You know, because we minister to the Portuguese and to the Italians, to the French-speaking community. You know, out there in Montreal, we go amongst the French-speaking, and that's their primary language. That's their first language. You know, Canada is a dual speaking nation, French and English, but we get a chance to go out there to Montreal and all throughout Quebec. It's beautiful to visit with the people. Kenny Blacksmith, Chief Kenny Blacksmith, will be with us again this year at summer camp. Yeah. Come in and visiting and talking with us about, I'll tell you, it's a great move of the Spirit that's occurring amongst the First Nation people. And we see a great change, like the Martin family. I guess we probably have had 8 or 10 people from the First Nations community that have come to a Spirit Ministry Training Center, come through the Bible school, and now they're pastors or leaders. Mm-hmm. It's great to see the development, no matter what a person's background.
Absolutely. And one thing about working with different people groups is you begin to realize that every people group has been perpetrated against. Every people group has had issues and struggles and concerns and challenges. I mean, the French people have been prejudiced against. The Catholic people have been prejudiced against you. If you're Protestant, the Anglicans have had problems. If you're Italian, if you're Portuguese, every people group has concerns and have had problems because of their culture and who they are. And I think God shows us that so that we can realize that it doesn't matter your differences. We all have them. We all have challenges in the culture that we're born into and the people group that we're a part of. But when you love God, you can overcome all of that.
And you know, we see like the Martin family is a great family in particular that we've had an opportunity to work very closely with. You know, you have Troy, who's a businessman and a wonderful musician, and he was a great lacrosse player. Mm-hmm. The Six Nations lacrosse team is one of the absolute best lacrosse teams in North America.
They are.
And they're always right there on top of the heap. And his brother Jace is a musician who travels around the country, musician. And Chad now and his wife Wendy, they are associate pastors of ours in New York. It's nice to see people, you know, just come into themselves and to find out what their real calling and what their purpose is in the world. And you know, you may be out there right now and you may be thinking, well, I don't know if I could ever do this. I want you to know 37 years ago when I first came to the knowledge of Christ, I think this was my 38th Easter season since I've known Christ. And you know, I would have never thought, not even for a minute, that I would ever be preaching the gospel, that I would ever go to the nations of the world, that I would ever have a real spiritual or a natural impact on people's lives in such a way. I want you to know, if God can do it to me, he can do it to you. And he can do it through you. It's a matter of yielding and opening up your heart and finding out, you know, what you're really all about and letting these things come out in yourself. And there's so much inside of each one of us, you know.
There is. And you know, when we find that in other people and we celebrate them and we accept them, that's the most important thing that we can do for one another as Christians, is to accept people and love them where they're at. That's what Jesus did. And we have lots of programs for inner healing and healing of the wounded heart and how to walk in personal freedom. And we always call it the LAP treatment. Listen, accept, and pray. Give them the lap treatment. You think about it when you used to sit on your mom's lap and you could tell her whatever was bothering you. She'd put your arms around you and she would love you. I remember doing that with my kids. Sometimes I still do that with my kids, and they're all grown up today. But I can tell you, when we will listen, really listen, not be so busy about what we have to say or how to fix the problem or how to show them how they should be living their life, but we really listen to their heart and understand where they're coming from, the problems, the concerns, the things that are weighing heavy on them. And we accept them where they're at. Not try to change them and make them into something that they aren't at this moment, but accept them where they are and pray for them and really believe God to change things in their life, because we cannot change the things in their life. We have to trust God to be God. He's God for me, and he'll be God for them. But if I'll listen from my heart and I'll accept them and I'll love them, God will change it.
And he's in the life-changing business. The power of God, the Spirit of God, the presence of God, the glory of God. From glory to glory, we're changed. Amen. Into the likeness of Christ. And I know that the things I was experiencing back then when I first came to know him, the drugs, the alcohol, the addictive problems that I was faced with, they looked so monumental, so huge. But you know, he began to peel different things off all through my life. And you know, the beautiful thing is he never leaves you or forsakes you. He's there. He doesn't judge you, but he just receives you and accepts you. And if we can learn to do that with other people, and it's not always easy, because many times we're hurt, we're broken, we're beat up ourselves, and hurt people hurt other people. Mm-hmm. And we react wrongly sometimes to someone says something or does something and it pricks an old wound, or it brings us back to a thought or experience, a negative time that we have. And instead of embracing the new and the changed person that we are, and instead of responding properly, we just react to that thing of the moment, to that old thing that was in our past. And if we can ever come out of that, and I think it's a process, 37, 38 years, and he's still working on me, thank God. I hope he never stops working on me.
And you know, it is a process, because you think about it. I remember the Lord speaking to me not very long ago about reactors. And reactors blow up and they hurt people. But responders, you think about a responder, what they do. First responders come and they bring healing and they bring help. And if we would stop reacting, people are going to say things that upset us, that hurt us. People are going to do things that aren't nice. But we have to remember that there's something in operation behind that person. We don't fight against flesh and blood, but we fight against principalities and powers. And the devil is always trying to make people fight with one another and put division and discord between family members and people that we love. So we always have to remember that we're not fighting them, but we're fighting a power and a principality that's at work. And if we'll learn to respond and just bring healing and love to whatever situation it is, we can overcome. Jesus came to overcome so that we could overcome. Doesn't matter how people behave or how they react, we can always respond. It's always our choice. We have a free will. God gave us that. Sometimes it's not always easy to choose, But we do. We choose to win or we choose to lose. It's always up to you and me. Our decision, our will is our own. And God wants us to learn how to respond, how to bring healing, how to bring wholeness, how to bring understanding and acceptance. And don't react. That's a tool of the enemy. Let's just learn to respond in love to one another.
And you know, if we can look at that person, look at things through that person's eyes and perspective and what they've gone through in their own lives, because each one of us has gone through a lot of problems, a lot of situations, and you know what? We actually respond and react from that deep place inside of ourselves. Unless we can begin to process things, wait, stop, look, listen, take a moment, and then just begin to respond in that right manner. Rather than bringing more contention and more strife into the situation, if we can just take a step back and just let that peace that goes beyond all understanding begin to change that experience that we're going through right then. And the people groups, the people that you're talking to, no matter where they're coming from, they've been hurt. No matter what their background, no matter what their color, their creed, their understanding. I mean, today around the world, Christians are being persecuted, missionaries are being killed. There's a physical persecution that's happening right now in Pakistan that's just something that's absolutely horrendous. But they're being killed around the world for their faith. And but they're still pressing in and still going on. And the love of Christ and the message of the gospel is still the life-changing force that's on the earth. We need to remember that, particularly as Christians. Here in the United States, as Americans in Canada, you know, we are still a great force spiritually around the world that has an impact on very, very many people around the world. It's good to be a part of what God's doing. You know, if you're out there today and you've heard us talk about missions, or you see the First Nations people, we work amongst all different types of people groups. If you have a heart for the mission field, tune in, because we're going to talk to you about our heart for the nations, about crying out for the nations. And you can travel with us to the nations in Africa, Bermuda, and Europe, and we're going to be showing you more video footage of our travels and our time and sharing the gospel and being amongst the people and what can really happen with them. So tune in to us every week now, whether it's on PCTV or some other channel where we're showing and putting forth our videos and information. We want to thank you for joining us today on From the Eagle's Nest. You have a wonderful day now. God bless you.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can.
Thank you for watching this edition of From the Eagle's Nest with your host, Dr. Russ Moyer. Eagle Worldwide Ministries offers a variety of resources to strengthen the body of Christ. Check out our product store at www.eagleworldwide.com.
I believe I can fly.